Hello, Dr. Strutz. This is John Dermeyer from your KIN 302 class, Contemporary Health Issues. And this is my final project. The contemporary health issue that I've chosen is health issues that are associated with agriculture and air quality. So in summary, the main air quality issue that is coming from agriculture is the emissions of ammonia aerosol exhaust, and that's mainly coming from factory farms and dairies, and it puts people at high risk of developing respiratory disorders and is a major contributor to poor air quality. So the people that are at the most risk are people that live within close proximity to dairies and farms, because the wind blows the ammonia aerosol. The ammonia aerosol and fertilizer that has been dried up and it's been infused with ammonia, and that matter can be inhaled by those living in the close proximity. And then the second is people living in places with inversion, and this was made very clear, the importance in a study done in Salt Lake, Utah. I actually personally helped in the aviation industry pull out the airplane that went up and did this research, and the airplane, it was a Twin Otter airplane, and they would fly over and take samples of the air over agriculture areas and many other industries and high traffic areas. But it found that during the inversion in between the mountains, that the air quality was way worse, and that was especially in areas with agriculture. And then also people with pre-existing disorders such as lung cancer, asthma, sleep apnea, and any other respiratory disorder, those people are at greater risk of complications when they breathe ammonia. And then prevention techniques. There simply needs to be more research done, and the public needs to understand the dangers of ammonia inhalation. Farmers need to change how they spread fertilizer. So ammonia is used to cultivate and to enrich soil, but how they spread the fertilizer is topical, so it's basically being thrown around by a combine, and it needs to actually be churned into the soil rather than just thrown through the air. That's making that matter that's dangerous to breathe. And then another source of ammonia is coming from dairy cows and their manure. So that would change if their diets were changed. So the ammonia is going through their system because of dietary choices by farmers. So if they change those diets, then there will be less ammonia emissions. And then simply the Clean Air Act doesn't, there's no specific regulations for ammonia, and that needs to change. And then simply having filters that can stop that particulate matter that I was talking about, that's fertilizer from and manure from leaving a dairy or a farm. Obviously, the farm it's much harder, but if you move to a greenhouse or something of that nature, they can filter that. And then the final technique is very interesting to me, is using 5G in farms. So it's shown in by CNN that collars used on cows, 5G collars can track what they eat, how much they eat, basically how they're feeling, because it's been shown that when they're under stress that the emissions actually are greater. So just tracking the animal more using 5G can prevent some of that exhaust from happening. So this may seem a little off topic, but it's not. A current event that actually got me interested in this topic is Joaquin Phoenix made headlines for his Golden Globe Award speech and his Oscar speech. I didn't see his movie The Joker, but I heard his acceptance speeches, and both of them he called out the agricultural industry and saying that they're contributing highly to global warming, and also to they're exploiting animals for gain. And that made me wonder, is this topic that he's talking about, is there any other effect that's happening to people other than like said, exploiting animals for our food industry and global warming, but is there more happening there? And by looking into this and remembering when my family lived in Utah in 2017 or 2016, that my son was sick almost the whole time we lived there, and it was definitely, air quality was a huge contributor to his sickness. So now we're going to go into a video by the European Union, and I'm sorry, I'll give the link for this video, but the audio for some reason isn't working in my recording, so I will just explain what's going on in this video. So as I said, it's done by the European Union, and it's explaining how ammonia is affecting the agriculture industry. And it's the ammonia is the leading exhaust. It causes up to a 90% of all emissions in the EU. It comes from livestock and from fertilizers. And it travels through emissions. And perculate matter is that fertilizer dirt that's going through the air. And ammonia also, within water, it causes more algae to grow, and that affects biodiversity. And this is just talking about how the European Union has decreased their ammonia emissions, and they're setting goals. And that my point is that we need to set similar goals, just like the European Union, to lower our emissions, because we don't really track ammonia emissions. We have the Clean Air Act, but it's not specific to ammonia emissions. And that's the topical, that picture was a topical fertilizer. Need to change how we do that. So I just thought that, just like the European Union, that we could set goals to change our ammonia emissions, and that by doing so, that we would limit sickness in our country, that the people that are living within close proximity or that have pre-existing issues and disorders, that they won't be at risk, and that those 30,000 people that are dying a year from ammonia emissions issues, that can be changed. So the proven things that ammonia emissions can cause: in low concentrations, ammonia can cause coughing and nose and throat irritation. And then inhalation of high levels is where it's scary, and that can cause burning of the nose, throat, and respiratory tract, which can cause edema, airway destruction, and respiratory distress or failure. So, I mean, that's where it's showing, like, people, if you breathe this, people can die. So it's an important thing. And there also are some signs that it could potentially contribute to cancer, although there's no hard facts, so I didn't put that down. But it's definitely a contributor. Like all of these signs are things that can contribute to cancer. So how this is applied in public health and how we can address this issue is, it's going to have to change the dairy industry, have to localize dairies and farms. People need to buy local produce and dairy, and simply emissions need to be regulated. And alternatives, like Joaquin Phoenix, he called for people to eat plant-based diets, so going vegetarian. And if you're not going to do that, then invest in urban farming and potentially high-rise greenhouses that the emissions are contained and can be filtered. And then also, if you want to eat meat, I know it's so many people think of hunting as a bad thing, but our meat industry is killing animals too. So if you really want to eat meat, go collect your own meat, and it's a lot better for the environment and for our health. And this is my sources. I'd like to thank you so much for a great semester, and I really enjoyed doing my research on this, and I believe that it's a problem that needs to be studied more, and that the lives can be saved by limiting the emissions of ammonia. Thanks so much, and have a great night.